Hello everyone, welcome to Redbust US channel. In this video, we'll look at the new discretion policy that was announced by USCIS recently that will be applicable for adjustment of status applications. So this is what we'll cover in this video, the background, what's the policy guidance before and after, and how they will use this. So this is the policy guidance that is released. As you can see, it was released on November 17th, and we'll look at those details. So background, for some of you, you may not be aware of what the discretion policy is. So the background is that there are two kinds of discretions. One is the prosecutorial, and the second one is adjudicative. In context of, for the first one, it's primarily used for enforcement. For example, if you're trying to enforce a law, it's typically done by ICE, then that would be prosecutorial discretion. And adjudicative is something where you use that to decide or make a decision on something, right? Typically, in the context of USCIS, they use this adjudicative one for making decisions, and especially for the forms, right? What are used in all these kinds of things. And this is not new. This has been there for many kinds of for years, and this is applicable for many kinds of forms. What essentially the officer gets when there is a discretion kind of thing applicable for a form is that he gets the freedom to decide on a petition to deny or approve based on the totality of circumstances. Looking at the overall application, he can make a decision. It cannot be random, but it has to be based on the application and what are the proofs that are as part of that. So now this is what the previous policy looked like for adjustment of status applications. So it used to be like a very simplistic, they would just they had only, like, as you can see on the screen, there are, it says that the officer has to look at eligibility, immigration status, family unity, business employment, and community standing. So it's very, very generic, and there was not clear guidance, so basically use your judgment. That's what the whole point is. And only in cases where there is removal order issued for somebody who's arriving in the country, that's when they basically if there is removal orders on that person, then you could use that unfavorably. So this is only guidance that was there. So it was pretty much subjective. So that's what it was. Now what they've done with this is with the new policy. What they've done is they've actually added a lot of items under each of these topics, and they tagged them as positive and negative factors. And what these factors are, what we will cover in this extensively. But fundamentally, they've actually narrowed down or added more information on what these discretionary factors are and how they would look at these things. So the first one, as part of the whole thing, is eligibility requirements. Basically you need to meet the requirement. So if the green card applicant meets all the eligibility criteria, then it's a positive factor. And this is exactly a screenshot taken from the USA's policy manual. So as you can see, if you meet the requirements, then you basically have a positive factor. If you do not meet the eligibility requirement, then it's not really a negative factor, but but it's kind of a negative factor because you're not meeting that. But you don't have to do a discretion analysis. That's what they mean in the second column. Yeah. Now, the second one they look at is the family and community ties, right? So the family and community ties is all it tells is if you have a very strong family and community ties, then it's a positive factor. If not, it's a negative factor. Again, this was very subjective. Now, what they've done is they've given some examples, and these examples are directly in the policy manual, and some of them are not in the policy manual. They are actually derived from certain case decisions. We'll look at that in a minute. So what constitutes a family ties is, for example, an applicant is married and has kids and or relatives in siblings, anybody, right? Then it's a positive factor because this person is in the US and he has all of these family ties. Yeah, so that's what constitutes a positive factor. And if the applicant who applied for adjustment of status has stayed in the country for a long time, right? Could be few years or longer than like 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, right? Then it's considered a positive factor because the idea is this person has established his ties in the country and he understands all of this, so he has some kind of interest in the country. That's what it tells. And also if the applicant has stayed in the US from a young age, let's say you are brought in like when you are like 10 years old, and then or even you're a teenager and you grew up in the country, then it shows that you have a strong tie with the US as a country, right? So that's what they mean by ties to community. So that's a positive factor as well. And again, so and also if the applicant's adjustment of status application is denied, then the family who's dependent on this will have a hard time to live in the US. Then also it's a positive factor. So what it means is that if your adjustment of status is denied, then your family cannot live. It's going to be a hard thing for them. Then also it's a positive factor. Now, contrary to this, if the applicant is single or stayed in the country only for a short period of time, then it's negative factor. So when you're single, you don't have any family ties in the country, or you just started living in the country. There are no community ties as well. So it is a negative factor. And all of these examples are based, these are just a snapshot of some of the examples that are picked up. But these are all derived from, from some of these, decisions by immigration judges called matter of Buscemi, matter of Arai, and matter of Marin, right? I mean, these are big judgment documents. I've actually gone through them. So these are one of those, just for your, information. This is how it looks. So in that, this is from 1970, right? And I've actually went through all of them. And in that, they tell why if the case was actually sustained, or basically if the person was actually, got it a favorable decision or not a favorable decision. And as part of the case, they explain how they look at the case, right? There is positive or negative to some extent. It's just that the points they highlight in making the decision. So this is what they've actually based all these things. So when you look at this is the screenshot from the policy manual now, what you see, and you see that footnotes or the reference sections, right? That is 23, 25. So those are referring to these documents, these case documents, and these are arrived from that. So these whatever 3 bullet points that you see are actually expanded by us based on whatever you see in that, right? Now, the second part of the big section is immigration status and history, right? So what they would do is USCIS officer would look at the immigration status of the applicant and also the history of the applicant, how they have actually been in the country. So if you stayed in, if you had legal immigration status, meaning, you entered the country legally and you have been maintaining the status entire duration, then it's a positive factor. Or if you entered, or if you have any kind of humanitarian based relief, it could be things like, let's say you have been, you've been asylum, or you've been any kind of humanitarian based relief that you granted. It could be TPS or any of these things, right? If you entered the country using one of these reliefs, and then it is also a positive factor because you have a real reason to be in the country. Also, if the applicant, unlike the above two, right? If the applicant has violated an immigration status, be it, you were out of status for some time, or you did not follow the protocols or did not follow the rules required for immigration, then it's a negative factor. It's obvious, but they really listed these things out, telling that, what is negative, what is positive. This is another case where, let's say you entered the country without proper visa, or you had a restricted visa. For example, some people who come in the vessels, ships, they only have a permit to be in the docking in the port. They can't leave the port, but you actually violated that and you entered the country and you stayed back. And this is an example. It's part of one of the cases, right? So then that person is actually it's a negative thing for that because he violated that, or you actually engaged in kind of fraud by creating some wrong documents, or you lied, or you have pending deportation orders or removal orders on you. Then that's a negative factor. Or let's say you lied to the government agency on anything, be it for getting a benefit or an application, then it's a negative factor. So these are just some of them that they look at in terms of the immigration status. The other one they look at is business, employment and skills. So in the business part, what they see is what kind of investments you've done, your education and the skills, right? So let's say, one of the ways you can show business ties is, let's say you bought a house, right? Or you bought a property in the country, or you invested in any business, or you're supporting in a business, then it's a positive factor. Or if you are employed most of the time, let's say you have been in continuous employment and not been a burden to the country by public charge or whatever, right? Then you actually have a stable job, and it means that it's a positive factor. This is a very positive factor for them. Or if you have specialized skills, let's say you have a degree in STEM category kind of things, or you have a skill that is going to be future, for example, electric vehicles, right? So that's a research that is the future, or any of the technologies, right? So then these are, positive factors. If you have skills in some of these specific areas, that will be the future. Or if the applicant, but if you have gaps in employment, or if you have unauthorized employment, be it, when you're a student, you engage in unauthorized employment and it's documented somewhere, or, anything that shows that you had gaps in employment or you violated any of these, then it's a negative factor. And also, if you were involved in any illegal things, illegal things to make money, be it selling drugs or prostitution, robbery, gambling, any of these things, illegal gambling, right? So anything that's not a legal source of income, then these are all negative factors. Believe it or not, there are many of these immigration cases that had things related to these drugs, robbery, and all of these things. So that's why they had to put these things that are derived from those cases. Yeah. This is one of the kind of the gray area ones, the community standing and moral character. So this is something that was subjective. Now this could be a problem for some of the applicants, right? So here what they would do is they would look at the applicant's moral character and behavior in the community. And then the baseline is if you followed the rules and law and order, then and do not have any criminal record, then it's a positive factor. And if you paid taxes and you cooperated with enforcement agencies, let's say you had some issue and you were cooperative, you did not really, abscond, then it's a positive factor, right? But you did not pay taxes and you, for example, you were divorced and you had some agreement and you didn't pay for child support and did not comply with court orders, then it's a negative factor. And also, if you were in armed forces or you did any community service activities, then it's a positive factor as well. On the other hand, if you did not follow rules and you had any criminal record on file, in a criminal record is, example, DUI is actually a criminal record in most of the states. So DUI is actually a negative factor. So this was actually kind of a gray area in the past. Like, if you wait for certain years, then it could go away and things like that. But now they've explicitly said that, any criminal record, DUI would fall under that. So there could be some discretion as well. And again, there is another gray area that is not explicit in the policy. But for example, if you repeatedly did not follow an order, right? Imagine you have 10 traffic violations, and you had 10 traffic tickets, for example. I'm just saying, for example, right? Repeatedly you jumped a stop sign. These are all some are subjective, right? But I'm repeatedly failing to do something can be treated as a negative factor. Again, they don't put it black and white here, but this is something that gives room for the immigration officer now to actually make a decision unfavorable because you did some things that are not helpful for the community and it's not good for the moral character, right? So that's what is slightly gray areas. So other examples are, if you they actually give reference to NTA memo, notice to appear memo that was released by Trump administration earlier this time. So these are all the things that they list in there, right? Criminal offense and chargeable. So you can read them, right? You abused any public benefits, any of these things, right? So these are all negative factors as well. And also if you had a criminal conduct, but you demonstrated a reformed character, then it can be treated as a positive factor as well. Of course, if you're a national security concern, then it's a negative factor. It's pretty clear on that, right? So the way USA's officers assess these are, they cannot assign points and tabulate them telling that, okay, it's positive, negative, then I make a decision. So they cannot assign points to make a decision. They need to look at the application on a whole to come up with this, right? So that is the guidance they're given. So they can approve an adjustment of status application if the applicant meets all the requirements and the positive factors outweigh the negative factors. So very, very important. Positive factors have to outweigh the negative factors. And they can deny the application if they meet the requirements, but the negative factors outweigh the positive factors. And of course, they need to give explanation why they denied it. So the officer will have to give the justification on their discretion as well, right? Also, unlike if they do not meet all the requirements, then they also can deny based on that, right? So essentially, it means that they don't have to explain on the discretion basis, but they need to explain why they did not meet the requirements. So in this kind of second case where they do not meet the requirements, they don't have to go into the details of all the discretion as well, yeah. This is about it, folks. So the effective date for this is actually November 17th, which is already, we are already past about a week or so, right? So the policy, as you can see on the policy alert, this is from the actual policy alert, it's effective immediately, meaning it's applicable to every single application that's already out there. This will be applicable for all the adjustment of status applications. So if you have a situation that requires attention, you should talk to your attorney and take it from there. Thank you for watching, folks. Hope you had good information from this video. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe for getting updates.